before, but this is good.
Yeah.
I go ahead.
So
Louis Vuitton culture. Go.
Oh, so I was going to talk about the rap culture, right? So this is rap culture. It talks about like supporting your own and supporting, black owned businesses or whatever, right? But it's funny because asterisk, right? Those are usually from the more backpacking, thought provoking type of people, right? While the main community, they may say support black, but they don't, right? The main rap community don't really do anything good for the black community, right? They don't. They
Yeah,
don't, man. From
it's
the
true.
lyrics they spit, but then also throwing out what type of bags or things. Because when you listen to a lot of it, right, the mainstream rap community, they're talking about getting you a Gucci bag or a Louis Vuitton bag or what was the other one? A Ferragamo, right? Which is
Mm.
another brand,
Mm.
right? Which
Mm.
I'm learning about all this. I don't know any of it. I'm just like, okay, this is all brand new, right?
Mm.
Um, so like they talk about that, and it creates this whole like desire to get that, and not only from just the black community, right? Because I don't know why, but when I see people decked out in Gucci, it looks tacky to me, right? Um, but also to the other cultures that like rap music but don't necessarily go with everything that goes with it, right? Like, oh, you got a Louis bag, like how many women say that like having a bag is for show and it's obviously to showcase a certain style, it's like, but for a man, like if you got a wallet, it's like, well, you don't get to see it that much, having a Louis Vuitton wallet, you don't see it, while a bag is on a girl, it's an accessory, it's a showcase, a high-end accessory, but yeah, I feel like a lot of the black communities or rappers, they talk about it, but they're not really doing anything to put money into black fashion designers, Although asterisk, Virgil ended up being the first African American designer for Louis Vuitton, which is a big deal. These mainly European French designers. You know what I'm saying? And it seems like if it has a French name on it, it's gonna have a higher, I guess, je ne sais quoi. Maybe I said that right. To it, right? A higher level to it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the same in cooking. Like certain, like the knives that you showed me, and then all of a sudden, when I look at different knives, it's like when they talk about good quality knives, it seems to be Japanese based knives, right? It all seems to be like Japanese steel, Japanese this, right? So when it comes to high end fashion, it has to be for the most part of Paris design, like something from France, you
European and
know,
shit, like Italian or
European, yeah,
French.
Italian, yeah, like for leather, it's Italian, right? Ooh, feel
I
this,
know. Why is that?
yeah, or French. I mean, it's like
Good
anything
marketing.
starts a name, good marketing,
Fucking
good
yeah.
exclusivity, all this other stuff, man. I don't know. Like I just found out about this other company. It was a leather company. Is it Herman Edwards or no? That's the coach, I think.
Oh yeah, Herm Edwards for the Jets. What? Nice. Doing well for himself.
Something Edwards.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, but I checked it out yesterday. Um, and so I was checking it out, and I was like, I don't know the brand, but I was like, this looks very, very cool, right? I was like,
Mm.
and the guy was talking about the leather or whatever, and he's like, yeah, we're like the subtle flex. Their boots or their shoes are around like 350 to 400, right? Now you can go higher for certain leather brands, but I was looking, I was like, it's kind of cool, and then we just got into like the different grains of leather, right? Like you have a cowhide leather that's thicker, that has like this like harder to break in, but once it breaks in, it's very long lasting, you know. But where I was going with that is just that there's other flexes that go on, but most people are only knowing about the super high end flex. There's other great quality stuff that sits in between, and it's good quality. It's not to sit there and say the Louis Vuitton or Gucci are not good quality. Is that there's certain things that might have slightly better quality but less of a name, you know?
Mm. Mm. That's like the way you're describing it. It feels like how back in the days, trying to find like a song or a brand or some type of clothing that motherfuckers ain't got. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you don't
Yeah,
even know about
yes.
this. You're like, what? It's like that Kanye line, like, I just bought that shit so I can
You
tell
ain't up
motherfuckers.
on this,
Yeah, you
right?
ain't up on this. What is that?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
do we do
Oh,
that?
this is doo-doo cologne or whatever, right? I'm like, what? Like, yeah, doo-doo cologne, bro. You ain't up on this.
I
Like,
mean, since we talk about high fashion and we talk about Kanye the goat, what do you think about his fashion line so far? Just maybe from the either the Gap side or the fucking the Adidas side.
I'm not really into it, you know. But what I believe in Kanye is people are gonna hate him, but guess what they're gonna do? He is an icon in himself, man. Like people will say whatever, but they will definitely follow him. They'll buy their stuff. They'll buy a shirt that has holes in it and pay $150 for it or whatever, you know. I don't necessarily like the design. I'm going more towards I'm trying to go still and I'm still trying to find it because even some stuff I have is like this still doesn't align as one, you know? Like I'm either too baggy on some stuff, and obviously each brand has a different fit and finish to it, like as far as like the material to the sizing, right? But I'm still trying to find mine. But I would say I'm more of a like I want to find things that are timeless classic design that will last a while, you know, like certain things like a nice fitted suit, you know, a black tie suit or whatever. But then they also say might as well get a navy suit because it can go multiple ways, right?
Very
You can be formal
flexible.
or you can dress it down. You can wear it with black shoes or you can wear it with brown shoes.
That's
You
true.
know,
Very
now
versatile piece of clothing.
people are now wearing people are now more so wearing brown shoes with black suits, which is a little bit different than what I'm used to seeing. But I guess that's the new, you know, fashion changes. Like I said,
Yeah.
we like I kind of sometimes think back at it like I probably was a fashion dude, you know, like we like think about this. We were wearing our shorts outside our sweatpants, which
Uh,
was not like usually you wear your shorts inside your sweatpants. We were wearing it outside. Not that it was something new. It was something we were doing, and other people couldn't get away with it.
something
But
about it.
we were trend setting a style.
That's what it is.
You know what I'm
Breaking
saying?
in, that's high end fashion right there.
That's high end fashion, right? It's like go ahead and wear those holy underwear. Like it's not holy. No, it's distressed.
Distressed, yeah. It's strange how that is such a finicky thing, like the idea of fashion. Because then there's like high fashion, that shit on the runway. You're like, I don't know what that is, but I don't think that's ever going to make it on the streets, and it usually doesn't. I don't think. And then there's the fashion
No,
you see on the street.
yeah,
Then there's street fashion, where it's like, okay, depending on whatever it is that whatever your, whatever matrix you're plugged into or reality,
yeah, true,
that will
true.
be
Which
the
the
high
movie's about to
value.
come out soon.
Midnight.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. Like maybe it's just whatever you're plugged into. Because motherfuckers that like I don't know, there's like some weird brands out there that we have no idea what they are, and they're uh, super expensive or super high fashion. And I'm like, I've never even heard like John Varvatos. You ever heard of that?
no, I thought that was somebody I actually knew, but John Barbados, no.
I don't know if that's the actual name or some shit. I had no idea what this brand was, and I remember I got introduced or I've seen it, and I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I could kind of see it. It's cool in a weird way. There's a certain type of branding to it, but it was, very. I want to say I'll probably fuck this up for all the John Varvatos fans, I guess. It's like it seemed at the time for an older type of audience. It's like I don't know what that would be back in our day. That was a hip brand for like motherfuckers like us now. You know what I'm saying? Because there has to
Yeah,
be different brands that are appealing to a different generation. So for us,
for
there's
sure, for
certain things
sure.
that yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, yeah, that was just some interesting. That was just
No, that's what I'm saying. Like even like the cooking, but like the company that I just looked it up, it was called Allen Edmonds is the brand of leather store, right?
okay.
And I was looking and I was like, it looks like a solid quality. Um, Probably not a lot of stuff I would wear because the fit may not be designed for me. I'm more tapered. Like sometimes I like tapered stuff, and then sometimes I like loose. But So I was looking at them and was like, okay, that's kind of interesting, you know. And then people were going into the whole leather brand, but there are like these brands like we talked about Cutco knives on here, right? And that's a knife I know of because my mom got it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm looking around, and obviously every brand's going to talk about how they are this or that, and
Mm-hmm.
especially when I start to read reviews on knives, every knife company is saying that they're one of the sharpest and long lasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, is this like, do they go around and actually have someone who proves it? You know what I'm saying? Or is this just a blanket statement, like the sharpest knives around? Wait, is there a test that they do
Yeah.
yearly that determine that this is the sharpest knife?
I mean, if that was the case, Ginsu knives are undefeated because Ginsu knives used to chop copper and then you dice a tomato right after. Like, what?
Right,
You can cut a
right,
pipe
right.
and a
You
tomato?
you you can cut through leather. Remember how tough ass leather? Like I get two knives because the ridges on there
Uh,
would create like a saw level, right?
yeah.
Which is another thing I was looking at, which is like I said, I go overboard on a lot of things. We went from fashion, but when I was looking up knives, they were talking about on the knives that you showed me, the Mac knives, right?
Shout out Mac
And
knives.
how it has a hole in it. So the hole
Mm,
in between the knife is so that fruits and vegetables or certain things don't stick to the knife.
yeah.
But they also called it, I think it might be Damascus or whatever. They call it
Mm-hmm.
something else in Japan where they have the design so it doesn't stick to the knife. And how they and
Ah.
how they and how they found it out, because one of the things was somehow it came up on YouTube because they're always the algorithm, right? I sound like
Mhm.
an old man, but the algorithm, right? The algorithm was talking about why Japanese knives are so expensive and how they go about the process. One thing I've definitely learned is anything that's Japanese has, it's kind of like French, right? It just has that extra 20%
Yeah.
added to the value, you know?
It's strange. But it is tried and true. That's what's strange. It's like okay for Japanese stuff, right? Toyota comes to mind. Toyota is
Yeah.
synonymous with, oh, there's like still, 80, 1980 something Toyotas driving out there still on I don't know how much mileage. You know what I'm saying? And that's just one example of certain things. And you have a tendency to notice a lot of stuff that is, produced there does have a tendency to be a certain quality of build for certain things, obviously. Fashion
Certain things, yeah.
there's I don't know what there's I would agree with you, European fashion has that moniker to it. But with
Yeah.
fashion it's a little harder to distinguish what makes one better than the other. And then yeah, with knives same thing, like what you were talking about, the Japanese thing, it goes alongside with craftsmanship, like the Damascus steel thing. That is like the idea of pressing steel in such a fashion where it's like I don't know 60 something layers or some shit, and it's just pressed and it kind of imprints in almost like a wood style like
Yeah.
finish, and which is very sexy. And knowing the history, or not knowing the history, but just kind of understanding of how it looks and why it looks like that, and the craftsmanship behind it. That's why knives end up becoming somewhat of like a, if you get into it like that, some collecting shit. You know what I mean? Like anything else, like motherfuckers that collect watches, knives, same deal. Because there's a lot of knives out there, and especially now. So if you think that, like the knives that are branded and the knives that are out there, there's a whole nother world where now there's just all custom. Like there's dudes just doing custom knives, and a lot of American made ones. They kind of took in a lot of those techniques and transferred it over and just doing very artisan, like one-offs or just specific type things, crazy.
Well, like not only were you talking about knives, but like it went down a whole another rabbit hole. And I want to get back to knives, but went down a rabbit hole of what is it, not Wagyu beef, right?
Mm,
And how Wagyu beef is like, they're talking about like a cow that's a Wagyu cow is like $30,000, right? Well,
mm,
normal average cow is like $3,000, right?
mm.
So it was talking about Wagyu and how they feed it, and now because of how expensive it is in Japan and the whole quality to it, other places have learned how they did it and are creating more cow with marbling, which is really how they kind of feed it. They feed it certain things and they keep fattening it up. They kind of like it's weird. I mean, well, whatever. It depends on how you look at it. It's kind of weird because what they're doing is they're literally fattening it up to get killed, right? So they're feeding it certain things that are high grain and fat or whatever, right? and so it creates the marbling of it or whatever. And so you can get, and from my understanding, that's what causes a good steak for the most part is the marbling of the meat and the tenderness of the cow, right? So they're also coming up with different techniques because one thing I'll definitely say with Americans, right, and things in America is like you give us the idea and we'll use technology against it to try to come up with a way to try to make it better or more efficient. You know what I'm saying?
Makes
Like,
sense.
doesn't mean it's going to be better. They'll just
Mm-hmm.
try to say this is good enough or whatever. But they're
Mm-hmm.
showing different ways of how they're making Wagyu beef with different grains of stuff that they're mixing together to give it a different flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back to knives, yeah, one of the things I was seeing on the knife too is like sometimes they do things with the knives to where they put the steel, but in the middle of the steel is more soft steel, so it doesn't break as easily.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
there's
heard
that
that. I
too.
don't know.
I'm
So
pretty sure I've come across certain ones like that. I can't recall, but yeah, the processes are very interesting in what they say and do. Um, and then and then it becomes a philosophy thing again. It's like, yo, do you want American made? Do you want imported? Japanese is definitely a step above. It's like having a, like any other thing, like, oh, having a, like a wallet that is specifically this from this country because I know the quality is there and I trust the branding and there's that whole deal. And that's how knives are too. You're kind of like it's a lot of it for me is just feel. It's just feel. And to be
yeah,
honest, it's like I don't give a fuck. I'll really cut with anything because I'm not in that mold of I like quality shit, but I still got my like school knives, and then I picked up a couple along the way. I have some nice pieces, some nice ones, but yeah, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'll probably end up getting another one pretty soon just because I like crafting and quality. But yeah, a lot of it's just
no,
philosophy at that point.
that's how I feel. That's how I feel with a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Just like like look, I'm in the shoes. Like I went back, man, and I need to actually probably send you this picture, but um, the one time I'm actually happy that I decided to not throw away some shoes, especially in today's time, was that
Oh,
my mom was like, "Oh, you want to keep these shoes?" And most times I'm like, "These shoes are falling apart," but I need to send you these, man, because you would understand.
which ones
I
are
sent you
these?
shoes.
Which ones are these? Hold up. Oh shit! Dang, bro, those are the
It's
mids or the
the
high tops?
These are the more. I want to see more mids of the
Mids, yeah.
dunks, but they
Oh,
were the
those, yeah.
2000 dunk, the Olympic dunks, right? And they're like they're elfing up or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
like I put them on, I was like, these still kind of last. They still like I can. And the funny thing is, right now with the style, right now people are like, yo, with the like right now, what's deep or what's cool is like rustic, like kind of rusted look in general, like aged
Mm-hmm.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like shoes are coming out now with the yellowing because people like the aging of stuff and how it looks, right?
That's
And
so
then and
weird.
then I remember when somebody told me many years ago was like, or not many years ago, I was listening to YouTube and the guy said Jordan ones look better when they're used and abused, and they start to look like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I put them on. I was like, I kind of like them beat up right now, you know, having everything nice on you, but then your shoes are beat up, but then I like it's still kind of
Still
fashionable.
there. Yeah.
So when I did wear it at the mall, the guy was like, "Yo, man, those are so dope, man. Did you age them?" I was like, "No, they're that old." That's all I said. I was like, "They're
Did
that
you
old, man."
age them? What the fuck?
Yeah,
That is so
like,
crazy.
I was like, "No, they're just that old," you know.
That is strange. I think we're
But
just heading into a weird time as people. Like we're like, what?
well, it's definitely different for us right now because
Okay,
we're at
what's
a
something
point
that you
where it's
think
like
that we did back then that is just as like strange now thinking back?
like the triple XL t-shirts.
That
Like
boom,
what
there
the
you go.
hell?
Boom.
Boom. Or a headband for no fucking reason. We're wearing headbands and wristbands for no fucking reason.
Hey,
Not everybody played
wristbands.
basketball. Like, what are you doing? You just got an 80s workout shop, you know what I'm saying?
And why was everybody wearing wristbands for real? Everybody had a
No,
wristband.
man. Yeah, everybody had a wristband. What are you doing? You ain't getting buckets, dude. Like for no reason, right?
Oh
Like
shit.
and or like wearing basketball jerseys backwards for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, that shit's
With the
fucking
player
hilarious.
Like, and now the kids love that, not that style, but they call it like Y2K, like Y2K clothes, where it's a little bit baggy, and the
Is
shirts are a
that
little
what's in
bit
right
baggy
now?
now
That's the style.
for the
I don't
kids.
know
Yeah, for the
anything.
kids.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's like Air Force Ones beat up, whatever, a little baggy shoes or whatever.
Fucking A, man. That is so
Some
crazy.
baggy clothes, but not
Yeah.
like baggy like we wore it, where it was like super baggy but looser clothes, not form. Because we like sometimes I look back at it, I was like, why was I wearing a size 38? Like,
Why we're wearing a garbage bag?
exactly. Look like Missy Elliott. I can't stand the rain. What are we doing, dude? Like, what?
That is so strange. It's cool though. I have to admit, it's funny because of being far removed from the generation of now. It's just interesting our take on it because motherfuckers like us, kids be like these old fucks, these fucking dummies. That is who we
Yeah,
are. You know what I'm saying?
and they look at us like, oh, you guys are weird, you guys are dumb, or whatever. It's like, look at what you're wearing. That's from us.
That's what I'm saying.
Look at
But
what you're
they're
listening to.
yeah,
That's from
they're at
us, right?
invisible right now. They're like at star level. They feel like they got that. They feel like
Yeah,
that's where
yeah,
they're invincible right now. So you can't tell them
yeah.
shit. Yeah,
No,
tell me
and the funny thing is,
nothing.
yeah, and I'm at an age where I'm just like, yeah, you go. It's your guys' turn. Like
Yeah.
it's our turn to do other things, right? It's our turn to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we're getting to the age where we're in between, right? What I mean by that is like we're getting established. We're about to get into, usually financially, people say around like 40 to 50 is where you make most of your money. Now we're getting to the part where we will be determining what things are going on. You know what I'm saying? Because we're getting into the power, the age of power and finance. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. We will be the majority voting, class supposedly in the next generation to kind of put things in
Or
swing.
usually not to sit there and say the youth don't have weight. They do make moves, but we're getting into the age where we have the financial power to make moves
Mm-hmm.
and stuff.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
that's
Where
true.
we're like, nope. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly. So that's what I think we're just going through. That's why like our universe, but going back to the Matrix metaverse universe stuff, what
Yes.
universe we're in, it's only specific to us. Like shit, ain't no one thinking about that, but amongst ourselves and a peer set. Now, generational wise, it's hard to determine, but there is something to be said about motherfuckers around the same age range are experiencing, varying degrees of the same thing, whether it be through a social construct or not. But it's fascinating because there's nothing to reference. The motherfuckers ahead of us had their own shit, and they're just really not into talking about their shit. They're just like, whatever. I don't know. I don't even fucking remember. I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah, or gatekeeping in a way. Well, like our generation is in between the gatekeepers and sharing of information.
Yeah.
You know what
See,
I'm
that's
saying?
what's
So,
strange. It's like, what do we do? The next generation right now, you're like, well, shit, they're going to be more equipped. So and we're still trying to figure it out. So it makes you think, oh, the motherfuckers right now who are way older, oh, they still trying to figure it out too. Like, oh, they're just in their
oh
own
yeah,
little
everybody
way.
trying to figure it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody trying because like I mean like ask a older person about Bitcoin and like I don't understand. Just like they didn't understand the internet,
Yeah.
right?
There was
They're
them
like, I
doubters.
don't understand this thing called Bitcoin. And it's like that's cool. That's cool. It's just a fad. And that's the one thing I usually hate. Is like, it's just a fad. It's been going on for the last 8 years. It's no longer just a fad.
That's
You're
what
going to
the
have to
internet was
accept
too.
that,
The internet
right?
was that for hella
That's
long.
a fad. Yeah, it's like, no.
That shit's
Like,
not
when
gonna
something sticks
last.
around, yeah, like when something stays around that long, it's no longer a fad, dude. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
think it just
fad is like
yeah.
a pog. Like,
Yes.
pogs. Like, how long did that last? A year?
A year.
It
For
got hot and
now.
then it was not.
For
Like,
now.
yeah.
That shit
No,
will
the,
come
the
back.
pogs are coming back. The
Yeah.
pogs are coming back because this generation literally bites everything we do. And that's cool. They just don't want to give us the credit. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you're talking about the disc, right?
So the pogs were the
Yeah, okay, cool.
well, you had the slammer and you had like
Yeah.
paper or like a cardboard
And then you had the little stack
pogs,
thing,
right?
little stack, like a little
Yeah,
stack
yeah.
could be
And it
okay.
was like, and they banned it because they considered it gambling. Because we would like, people would come in,
Bap!
still look old kids, back my pogs now, bitch, right? Like, and then take someone else and someone will go home with no pogs.
See, I thought you were talking about Pogs, like PAWG. I was like, oh yes, that is also vintage.
No, that is pogs, right? We're talking about the same thing.
Oh, is it? Okay, okay, okay.
You're talking about the one with the slammer and the like. They used to call it
Yes.
bottle cap, I think, back or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah.
Bottle
So
caps. There you go. Yes.
It
Nice.
was like bottle caps, and then I started doing research about that even back in the day. So
But
I would
see,
get on a
that's what I'm
bus.
saying. Like,
I'll
fuck,
go
did
to
this
the
have did that happen to the
library.
generation before us? Like how we ran through toys. Like we had toy apocalypse, I think, in our generation. Like
We did. I'm so
it's
mad I didn't get a
insane.
Teddy Ruxpin from my mom.
But it was like there was something new literally like every what like month maybe. I don't know. It felt like there was so many toys and good
Well,
ones
I
too.
don't.
Like there were some good fucking toys out there. Clearly
Yes,
because
but
everybody's looking for them still.
and I want to say in fairness, your father, but your kid's not of the age of the toys yet, right? So I
Ah,
think it's the same now, but you may not see it right now. You know what I'm saying?
good point. Good point. I think what I'm thinking is because of the internet and how we can see what our generation kind of values in a weird way, where, baseball cards is synonymous with a certain generation versus
Yeah, if you grew
us,
up in
where
the
it's
50s
like
and 60s or something like that.
motherfuckers got like shoes, motherfuckers got, all weird collector's item stuff. Now there's a whole
But
another world of, motherfuckers. Yeah.
but even that generation had collectors. They had bats, they had cards, they
Yeah.
had comics. Like I
Oh,
only
yeah.
knew
Yeah.
about I only knew about the death of Superman just because my dad bought the whole series leading up to that. Right.
Damn.
And he had my dad had the original Spider-Man when he was a kid.
Oof.
Right. And then I have all his records, what I'm glad I have still. Right. But my dad had the original Spider-Man and his father, because he didn't understand, just like any other
Mm,
generation, like,
yeah.
you're gonna get to a point where you don't understand what your son is gonna be doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? And then you may not agree with it, may not like it, right? Well, his dad was like, get rid of this, and threw away his comics. He
Oof.
literally had the first Spider-Man. I remember hearing my dad said that, and what I remember that because he said, I had the first Spider-Man, and my dad threw away, and that made me not want to collect comics anymore. It made me not want to be in the comic world.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Just like
So you
that.
got to look at my dad. Like, it was 1963 when Spider-Man was announced, right?
Something
So
like
you're
that.
looking. He was about 8 years old.
Oof.
My dad was born in 1955. So you're about 8 years old, and you got the first Spider-Man around that time. Or it could be a little bit older, and you bought it at as a collection. But
Yeah. But still in
you
its youth.
know,
Yeah.
because this was in like 91, around 1990 around 90 is when I started to get into
Comics.
comics, and that's partially from the comic cards that they had around that
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
and
Tops.
then partially, huh?
Tops had some comic
Topps card,
cards.
yeah,
Yep.
the comic cards, and collecting that, and then reading the back of it and learning people's powers. And I remember
Hmm.
I had a Thanos one. I was like, "Who the hell is Thanos?"
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Other
yeah,
than
yeah.
right, and I had a Thanos one. I was like, "Who's Thanos?" And then came the X-Men TV series, and that just destroyed my world. Yeah, yeah, that destroyed my world. So
Dude, that
you're
was
getting
so
into
good.
that because I literally had the first Spawn
Oh
comic,
yeah.
right?
Hey, yep.
And I was an idiot because you're being a goody two shoes. It had some cuss words in it, and I felt weird. I think maybe my dad got that for me, right?
Oh
And I
shit.
traded it for a Wolverine comic.
Hey, Wolverine's nice. Wolverine's classic.
Yeah, and I remember thinking to myself, like, as I got older, it was like around '97. Like, I literally had the first Spawn comic. I
Mhm.
can't believe I let that go.
Yeah, I think my brother still has it. For sure, he still has it. I know he does. Yeah, that shit. That's a good comic though. Fuck, it was like Spider Man and Punisher put together.
Dude, because I remember he like put the middle finger, right, and he had this like bomb, like whatever he had on his finger was like a bomb device that he flipped it, and then
Come
it went
on,
up and
man.
blew someone up.
Come on,
Dude,
man. Come on, man. Jamie
let
Foxx
me let
gonna
me
play
see.
him? Is
Let
Jamie
me
Foxx gonna play him in like the newest version? Jamie Foxx is like, or
maybe
Michael B.
yeah.
Jordan. Who
Yeah.
plays him? Michael B. Jordan plays Spawn.
I rather have Jimmy Fox right now. I'm like Michael B. Jordan down. Like I'm like, please don't work Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, it's
It's
too
kind of like
much.
Kevin Hart right now. It's like Kevin Hart right now.
Ah, hate, 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 hate. Yeah, no, that's hella funny though.
Let me see. I just want to see if I was right. There's like
But 97.
no, I meant like the Spawn comic. because like I just that's what I remember. Oh, I could
Spawn
be
was
completely
good.
wrong.
Spawn was good.
Spawn was good, man. Like that was one of the that was one that's like that was a very interesting, and then then finding out I didn't know, but then finding out he was a black character, which is like
Mhm.
a big deal in comics at that time. Just like I don't know if there's a Filipino character yet, but I'm sure they're gonna make a Manny Pacquiao
But it's
comic
crazy.
character.
So so the interesting part about Spawn is Spawn used to be the '90s artist Todd McFarlane, I believe, is the
Yeah,
artist, and he branched off along with a bunch of other artists to create Image Comics, like Rob Liefeld,
yes,
Walt Petrasio, I think Jim Lee maybe I think was on that too. So they were doing all the '90s X-Men
yes.
shit, the good shit. Like the cartoon was based off of I think Jim Lee's drawings or some shit, right? But anyways, so they all went to do their own
Jim
thing.
Lee's a beast draw
Ooh, come
artist in
on,
my
man,
opinion.
come on. He was
Still one of the best. If I to me for me, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. But they all have their own like little style. But anyways, back to the thing. So there was Spawn obviously was the one of the bigger names to come out of that comic book series. But there was also a series called Wetworks, and it was about these dudes, this like like special forces unit that got consumed by like a symbiote, like a kind of like the Carnage and Venom idea, but
Yeah,
it was like a gold one, and then it was kind of like they were all encapsulated in gold, and some shit went down. But there was a Filipino character in there named Grail, and he had two like almost like a light
the
blue.
Kramagra thing,
Yeah,
or
like he had two sticks, and they were like the
wait,
blue
wait,
sticks and
because
shit. And he had the mask. Yeah, he was
no,
ill. Oh, not Krav Maga.
Krav Maga is Israeli, right?
I think so. It was Arnice,
Because
like the thing.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, Arnice, right? And then you have also Eskrima, isn't that
Yes.
Filipino martial
Screamer.
arts, right?
Yeah. Arnice and a Screamer. Yeah. Yep.
Man,
Yeah. He was a
I'm not
comic
kind
book
of worldly,
character.
man.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, dude, he was a Filipino character in a comic book thing, and it was Image Comics as well. Same thing with Spawn. So two groundbreaking characters, and this is in the '90s. So, and that is dead center right at our path of teenage to teenage youth shit. This is fascinating, you know what I mean, to for that to be supplanted in history, at least how I see it, and how at that time it was so like breaking out of the mold, you know what I mean. It was like, oh, we're tired of Marvel and DC, like we're just going to do our own thing, and it was unprecedented at the time because
Well,
both of
yeah,
those
because it
brands
was
had
a
like heavy brands, DC
heavy.
being the
It was
OG ones, yeah, but
well, yeah, because like at that time, right when I look back at it, it was what I didn't know was going on was they spawned off because they didn't have enough creative control, and they didn't also get credit. Like they do all these things, but they didn't get to own the characters. There's some weird thing where they didn't, like even now there's issues right now where people are talking about the people who wrote the original Infinity War Endgame. They're not, or Infinity War, are not getting credit for the spawn off of the movies, right?
ah
And the asterisk part of that though is because there was that lawsuit for I think Ditko's family, Steve Ditko, and some other people. Not Ditko, but there's another dude who created the Eternals
okay,
and that whole design, right? Jack Kirby, things like that, right?
mm-hmm.
These people designed it, but what's going on is their family's not getting a lot of credit, and so they're trying to recall these characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the asterisk part is that when you work under a company, like say if I figured out a way to cure cancer and I was working for the Navy,
Navy
because
owns
I
that
was
shit.
working for the Navy, the Navy owns that, right?
Yep.
Because you're contracted under that, you
Yep.
know?
Marvel owns that, all that shit. Yep.
Yeah, and so because I remember hearing that with the Marvel story, and there was like a lot of people were like, "We're done. We got to go somewhere else." And then that's how Image is funny because they are and just like kind of like Family Guy, right? And what I'm saying is like, so Family Guy is a TV show, right? As a cartoon TV show, they remember they came out back in 1999, right? I think they lasted about a year or two, and then people deemed it too ridiculous or whatever that it got canceled. But then it became like a pop culture so big that it came back.
Cult
Okay,
following. Yeah.
cult following, but they pushed the limits of cartoons, right? Ren and Stimpy a little bit too, because when you go back and watch Ren and Stimpy, you're like, yo, these
Oh
guys
wow.
are out of pocket.
Yeah.
Um, But like, so then you see how other cartoons start to react. So why I say this because Image Comics was more brutal. You had titties there, you had blood, all this stuff, right? Then comics like DC started to follow suit. Marvel didn't until more recently, you know, but DC was willing to, like have a little bit more brutality, especially with someone like Batman, you know. But when I look at images of some of their characters, just like what is it? The one Invincible. Did you watch
Oh
that on
yeah.
Amazon?
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't.
So Invincible was pretty dope. I mean, it's pretty much there. It's an Image comic uh, character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's essentially it's a Superman without the. No, I think he has laser beams, but like it's essentially it's Superman, you know. And so like, but it was a little bit more brutal. I suggest that you watch it because it's actually kind of funny too, like so brutal but funny. We have Image, but then you also forget that Image also does one of the I this show fell off to me, one of the biggest shows
Fun.
for a while. Walking Dead.
Oh shit, that's right. Yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I forget. I forget. That is crazy. But I mean, that show just kind of it became, you got to milk it for everything.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
right now it's like I'm just like because they founded in 1992 in Portland, Oregon. Image Comics.
Whoa.
Yep, founders Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld. Exactly what you said. All the Eric Larson,
Eric Larson, yeah.
all some of the top
Top
people,
top
and
fucking
I think Jim Lee went.
illustrators. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Lee is one of my favorite. I think Jim Lee started to go back to. I think he went back to DC now. He's because that's
Mhm.
when I was at Comic Con. He was speaking about art and how he was drawing more of the new Batman stuff right now,
Yeah.
and his artistic style. And one of the reasons why I think I was into drawing and art was because of comics too.
Oh, for sure.
You
And that's
know?
what's a weird thing is because the introduction to anything art at that time, comics. I mean, even though that is essentially what they were, that's a spin-off of like old, fucking those comic strips, that you get in the newspaper. It went from that to fucking Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, like, like, whoa, that's a long ways away. You know what I mean? And to see it and how it's expressed, I mean, it's only now you're seeing it, I think, becoming like a thing where I think when we were consuming it, it was just so unique at the time. Like being an
Yeah,
illustrator for like a comic, like, oh, this is like science fiction, this is fantasy, but you're just drawn like it's just and the way they did it and the style, you're like, oh, it's definitely an American version of anime type shit. You know what I mean? Because it has those
yeah,
portions and it's kind of the look, but it's so unique. You know what I mean?
yeah. Comics. It's funny because like I think a lot of people when we were growing up, people dogged on people on comics, but there was at the time you were either had an intellectual side to you to read comics because a lot of it, even though you may not have known, a lot of it is had some out there science based on it. Like think about this, not even just think about like science based, but one of the most powerful mutants is Professor X, right? And as we grow into our into this life, right? One of the major things people talk about a lot is controlling your mind, right? And so when I look back at it, they were kind of telling you that if you can control your mind, you control anything. From someone like Professor X, you know, one of the most powerful people anywhere, right? Some of the best people are people who can manipulate you. Why? Because they're in your head, right? And these were subtle things that they were saying back then. You know, you can control your mind, you can control your thoughts, you can do anything. You know, Professor
Yeah.
X at one point can control anyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea of like looking up and researching like Magneto, the magnetism, he can control so many things around the world. Like that's all science based stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's kind of crazy, Or even Batman, where they talked about art imitates life, life imitates art. Two characters that are two shows or two entities that kind of probably push technology forward. Star Trek and Batman. Batman had devices, that he can talk into, had certain things, and people would figure out how to create that. Like the first They said that the first Bluetooth was designed off of Star Trek and their wireless device, their ear.
Man, I think all of this technology was back in the days already. To be honest, I think this shit
I know how
existed.
you think about it. It was already there.
I mean, think about it. Like, how
It's like
creative
so
you
you think
got
it's
to
like
be.
Transformers, right? It's like Transformers. Like some alien entity came in here, and all we did was reverse engineer, and so we got it better and better every time.
Something to that effect. I mean, Transformers is one thing. I'm thinking like giant something. There's some kind of giants out there, yeah, or were big people, and then they're either in hiding or went back down, or we took them out, or whatever happened to them. That's what I'm thinking. That's what because it seems weird how creative you got to be from an idea standpoint to just like, and I get it. Don't get me wrong, mine's very powerful. I think that's how we're even at this point. So it's not to say that it's just some of these things you're like, yo, how did this come about? How did you? I don't feel smart like that. Like whoever's behind this is really like, hey, where did you concept that? Like, how did you just give me some rundown of how you achieved this thought? Because I don't understand that.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like I could think I'm smart, but really I'm just using smart shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to make this microphone. Like I can't be like, hey, I'm gonna go be in the woods and then have a hatchet,
well,
and then I'll try to email you as soon as I figure out how to build a computer from scratch. Like,
I'm not gonna sit there and say that's not the option or that doesn't happen. But what I would say is, I think that what happened is that we are our generation in our time. We're smart, but not smart at the same time, right? We have way more knowledge about a lot of things for the most part, while most of the time we are not focused on just one thing. When you look back at people back then, they had nothing but time to focus on that. Distractions were out, right?
mm,
Like we are highly distracted by so many things, right? If you have a strong mind, you can learn a lot faster using the internet, right? And some people will until they get bored, right? You like in the last 3 weeks, just maybe I'm patting myself on the back. In the last 3 weeks, when I started to talk about food, look at what I've talked about already about the possible knives and the history of that, you know?
true. But I got one for you then. How about this? Maybe we are too distracted, and maybe the generation before us just knew different things, like to change their oil and how to cook and how to farm and how to survive off the land and shit like that. Like shit that we definitely don't. A lot of our generation is kind of removed from. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I could barely butcher like a whole cow, let alone a whole pig. If I caught one or if I raised one. I could do chickens all day. Pig, I think I still got I kind of know how to maneuver around. Beef would be a little tougher. But I mean, to me, I was like, yo, those at certain points, I think were I think even now, I think those are high valued skill sets.
They are.
Being able to hunt, not a lot of people know how to do that. And I'm
No,
like,
not at
yo,
all.
so the straight, but I get it. I mean, and this is where it becomes the Professor X idea. And I think this is where our generation is. And I think I'll take this all the way back to the beginning conversation, probably off camera, but it was that weird. It's like where the balance is, where the generation of the past and the generation of the future, and we're like in the transition point. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
we're kind of that's our world.
yeah, because like I think like kids now are super smart on one thing, right? Kind of
Mm,
reversing it back. They're super smart on one thing, but if you ever talk to some kids, it's like you guys don't know other crap at all, and how people can say. But what I would say about us too is like we are more of a data dump generation,
mm,
meaning that we do not use anything that we don't need at the time.
mm,
When we need to use it, like just say you said, oh, I don't know how to kill or a cow, right, or butcher a cow, but I bet I mean, meaning if you had the access, if you were in a situation you had to, you would look it up, you do the research, you'll
true.
figure it out,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
When need be, you'll figure it out, you know.
Yeah.
But until then, we don't need that, you know.
Mm, mm. And then see, so this is where now to the Matrix themes and the multiverse themes, our dependency and coexistence, I think at this point with technology, it seems like a bond that cannot be, broken. It seems like this is going forward. This is the relationship that humans will have with, technology. Whereas the generations not too long ago within our living time to some degree, it wasn't so much like that. So seeing that is fascinating because I don't really see a world going forward where people are going to feel comfortable without it. And
I had
that's
this
where
one
it's like, well, where are we going?
I had this one girl, and she like at first it sounds stupid,
Mm,
but I have to give her credit. She was smarter than me, right? She said technology is anything that's moving forward, right?
mm,
That pushes a thing forward. Like every group had some form of technology or advancement, right? We look at technology as actual tech, but when you look at technology, it's anything that moves something forward. So at first, you had the bow and arrow, and then someone created a gun.
mm,
That's advancement in, hunting technology in a way.
mm.
Now I get that people would say that's just a thing, but how she looked at it, I was like, wow, that doesn't sound what I would think what tech is, but it's truth. Everything kind of grows on it and is considered an advancement. So like I think that where we're at, we're definitely we geared heavily on like electronic technology, you know what I'm saying, to get us through the day and um make our lives easier.
See, when it's advancement, where are we advancing to? Because I don't know where we're
That's
going.
that well that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, like you can be advancing you can be advancing forward or advancing backwards, right? Like
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds
I'm like,
like
where are
stupid
we
to say,
advancing
but
to? If someone knows that we're advancing, whoever knows that we're advancing knows also what we're advancing to. That's what I'm going to assume. But the question is, who knows where we're advancing to is the question. And that's what's strange
well,
because
not necessarily.
collectively, where are we
Not
heading?
necessarily. I was gonna say not necessarily because you advance in certain things, but you just kept going, right? Like in life, you
Mm,
advance in age, you advance in knowledge, and you just sometimes you don't necessarily know where you're going.
mm,
It's best to have a plan to know where you want to go,
mm,
right? Because then you're more likely to get there. But for most of life, for at least the mid 20s or so, right? That
mm,
we were just moving forward and trying to figure out where we wanted to go. So we were advancing forward, right?
mm.
Some dips, but you kept pushing forward.
And then that's like the Matrix. Why do you keep fighting? Because I choose to. Like,
I
okay,
choose to. Yeah.
yeah, it's like the human condition. It's back to this interesting, thing we always come across when we talk, philosophical like this and spiritual, all stuff like that. It is like, what is the experience? Are we in charge? Is it predetermined? It's always those interesting questions. And now when we bring in, the tech form, and then we see, how life has kind of gotten to this point, you're like, yo, this is where are we advancing to? And you talk to
Yeah.
Professor X world, and I'm like, interesting how he becomes, the one of the, that character that is all of the mind. And you said like it's a weird hidden clue in some comic, like, yeah, this is some weird magic to control your world is through the mind. At least that's how I see it. Because Professor X, when he gets in the layer, all of a sudden he's doing some other shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, so he's maybe, for like the Matrix, he's like, yo, when I go here, I'm going into different realities. My mind is, is can be everywhere. I was like, yo, what did this fool just do the Matrix on us? Like he tapped in from some cerebral praise and then from Cerebrus was like, yo, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna read minds. And I was like, this fool is telling the secret of life.
All minds at one time, like throughout the world. Like when he
But that's
he uses
philosophical in
cerebral,
itself. That's hella
right?
philosophical, right? All one. Like this is all we're all of one mind. Like,
And no
whatever that
one
is.
can stop him unless it was Magneto that had the thing that deflects his mind or whatever access in the
Yes.
mind.
And that's interesting. Why magnets?
No, it was more. It was just more they said it was like the helmet that he wore was the design and how it reflects psychic powers or whatever.
I would
That's
say
why he
magnets
wore
is
it.
probably that because Magneto, man,
Probably.
come on, man. Magneto, it's hidden because think about this. How many times do you ever hear about magnet history, magnet information?
Not often, but I do know that because of how information is transferred right now,
Yeah.
right? It's either light or electricity based, right? So it's like
Mm,
it's on and off, right?
yeah.
So you're like fiber optics, you're transmitting information that turns into digital code into to ones and off, ons and off. But a lot of it you still need electricity, and electricity is in what? magnets, right?
Boom.
You charge a metal rod, but I forgot what type of metal it has to be in order for it to be um, conductive,
Mm.
or what's the proper term? I'm saying it wrong because I should have known because it was something when I went to school for electricity, but that was many years ago. Electricity, but what it was is like inductive, so it can be inducted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that can hold a charge, but the charge is a magnetic charge,
Mm.
you know.
Mm. See, maybe we're looking at this wrong. Maybe Professor X is the villain and Magneto is the hero.
I mean, yeah, I mean, every so that's the funny thing because every villain thinks they're a hero in their own world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've always wanted to, like I think they have already done this story, and it's funny because it coincides with certain things you haven't heard. But I always wanted to do a story where like if I was a director, I wanted to do a Joker movie
Mm.
where in his mind, how he sees himself is he's the villain and he's
Mm.
trying to free everybody from Batman's control,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going around trying to free somebody, but he doesn't realize that he's the crazy one,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah. I want to say they hint at those ideas when they do like little vignettes and flashbacks. I haven't seen the what's it called, Joaquin Phoenix one, but I would assume that that one. I don't know if you've seen it, but I would assume that one maybe plays a little bit into that, but I don't know how much.
It plays a little bit, but I would love to see it where it's like he's literally like he looks like a normal person to him, and
Ah,
the whole movie is he's seeing something, but he's like he sees his life as normal, right?
mm,
And the people who come at him are the weird demonic one, and there's this like demon that's Batman, right? And he sees Batman
mm,
and the demon's like trying to stop him from controlling all these other people, but
mm,
then at the end, it like he doesn't know, but in the end, it just flips it and is like nah, he's been the crazy one the whole time, you know?
yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting perspective because you can make the argument for like what you said earlier about villains thinking they're heroes because they are doing
Well,
something in in their belief, and they just happen to have their following. But at the same time, you can make the argument for the heroes in a lot of stories. They become this weird anti-hero situation, or vigilante. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're taking the law into your hands and power, and shit like that. That's always the talking point with superheroes to varying degrees is their capacity to go rogue, and they don't follow, we have to go through them. It's an interesting complex in that way, but then every villain, it's like damn, like especially the one that I remember a lot of people always thinking like the Thanos one is like, well, I mean, it made sense. I was
yeah,
like, well,
everybody, yeah,
it's like, okay, I mean,
because
it's
in every
true.
Marvel movie right now, the joke is Thanos was right. It's a
Yeah.
joke, right? Because like one show was talking about how there was people prospering because there was more for them, right? They're rebuilding during that time when people were gone, and then there was more for them. And now when people came back, it's like we don't have enough resource or whatever. Now my home is no longer my home, even though you've been gone for 5 years. How do I go about this? You weren't here. I
Mm-hmm.
was. I
Mm-hmm.
took care of this house. This is my house now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So and then Thanos was right. You know. But then there's other movies that showcase why Thanos was right a little bit. But I'm not gonna talk about it on the podcast until someone watches it or Well, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess
Ah,
because by the
fucking
time someone
spoiler
hears it,
alert. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
It's been
it's fine.
out more than a month.
It's
If
fucking
you don't see it,
entertainment. Yeah.
yeah, if
Shut
you
your
haven't
face.
seen it by now,
Yeah.
then you really didn't want to see it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
On Eternals, right? On the Eternals movie, actually, I'll stop because my roommate hasn't seen it, so I'll stop. I'll
Uh,
tell her later. Yeah,
oh, you
yeah.
good.
So, but yeah, there's certain things on the movies. Speaking of movies, did you see the Spider Man?
Not yet, but I've been hearing it's like the fucking top five grossing movie of all time and shit. That good?
Oh, that the weekend it was second for the top grossing
Did you watch it already?
like a weekend. Oh yeah, I watched it twice. Yeah,
That good, huh?
you're right. When I seen it the first time, I felt like it was almost it was close to near perfect movie for me, right?
Oh.
And a lot of beats of a lot of like there's missteps at the beginning. There's things that's like it feels slow, but
Mhm.
then there's certain things that happen throughout the movie where it's just like it catches you emotionally, it catches you emotionally a lot, but also
That's what
it
everybody
catches you in
says.
other.
Everybody's saying that.
Yeah, because there's certain things that happen throughout the movie, and um redemption, things like that. Just like
Shit. Okay, so Spider-Man goes down as the best Marvel movie owned by Sony.
like owned by Sony, owned by Marvel, owned by Sony, owned by Marvel, because Marvel still owns Spider-Man in different
Spider-Man.
rights, but not
But
in the
Sony. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, is it the best Marvel, man? Like, there's certain movies that I like more, and it's not as perfect. I just like it more.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
I love Captain America: Winter Soldier,
Mm.
the espionage to like at that time how it felt and how it was super dope. I love Iron Man because at the beginning you never felt that way about a Marvel movie or a superhero movie at the time, right? The only other one that was that good or maybe better was like the Batman movies. But at
That's what
that
I'm saying.
time,
Like, do you think that this Spider-Man is better? I think the Batman movies are probably like top for sure. Those are like rewatchable type shits.
the
The Christian Bale one.
like yeah, the Batman movies were dope in a more storytelling. Like, how can I say it? Those were movies starring comic characters.
Mm.
These are comic movies. It's a difference in that.
I get what you're saying. There's a little more of
You
a
know
science
the
fiction type feel to it. Or
the
sci-fi, yeah.
the grandioso without being a super
Yeah, corny and
movie
cheesy. Yeah.
corny. Yeah, like,
Yeah. It's like
and it
right
still
at the
has that,
tip.
but
It's like this is the
yeah,
most
it's like
it could be.
this is a movie. This is a movie more designed for people who have read comics, and it aligns with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that Batman series is one of the greatest series of all time.
All time.
Granted, like people may not like Christian Bale, but like the performance of Joker was great. All this other stuff.
That's what I'm saying. Oof.
Like for me, the Spider-Man movie, maybe because there's some nostalgia in the villains.
Mhm.
It feels complete
Mm.
over the 8 movies. I'll put it that way, without like
Mm.
giving too much away until you will watch it.
Advancing is, so to speak, advancing. It's advancing.
It like so it completes a certain arc, right?
Mm.
Of the Spider-Man movies we've seen because the villains or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then it leaves enough to allow you to move forward
Mm.
on a new arc with this character. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Okay. Spider-Man is one of those household classic names. That's one of the oldest
Dude,
brands. You know what I mean?
I was looking it up. Other than the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans, right?
Yes.
Most Spider-Man movies had a 90% or higher for like ratings of movies, right?
Yeah.
The highest one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and uh, I would say when I watched that movie, it blew me away visually,
Mm.
story wise,
Mm.
emotionally. I was like, that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is still one of my favorites. I don't want to put that in the same category of a live action film though. There's certain things that you can that animation can get away with, and it feels good, opposed to live action. Certain things in live action, when you see it and the physics don't look right, even
Mm.
within it throws it off. While comics can get away with that.
Yeah, they could suspend disbelief. It's like a redone version of like, movies from back in the days. They were all like that. You can suspend disbelief for a little bit. Like, yeah, that looks right. Looks pretty good.
Yeah,
They do a pretty good job. I mean, but they do a bang up job. Who would ever thought that we'd get to this point where all this shit would just be fucking movies now and TV shows and shit? And like
dude.
you said,
Yeah,
X-Men.
and it's
X-Men
running,
was
and
dope.
it's running.
Yeah. And now it's
Oh,
like,
the
yo,
first X-Men, right? The first X-Men was cool. I was like, cool. But then I remember seeing this when Spider-Man came out with Tobey Maguire. I was thinking like, and I watched that and I was like, this is the first movie
mm,
that I felt like it was like comic book. And then many years later, right? 6 years later, you have Iron Man, and I was like, that one blew me away. Now I put Iron Man up there as one of the top Marvels just because of the beginning, how it felt. It felt so solid in itself. It felt believable.
mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it felt grounded and believable to a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, like how good that movie is. Robert Downey Jr. I mean, shit, that motherfucker played that shit very well.
And that's not even his best role, in my opinion. You know,
Mm-mm.
his best role is to me,
Not even close. Which one?
Kurt Lazarus on Tropic Thunder.
Hey,
Versus
hey,
Osiris, like yo,
hey.
how he played that role is like I ain't even mad at
That's what I'm saying.
Robert Downey Jr. at
From
all.
an acting standpoint, like that
Uh,
is like
that role, because like and how he did everything, like still to this day, I watch it, I'm in tears. Like just little stuff and him playing a black, like even playing a black character. I'm watching, I was like, yo, man, he killed that. Like the certain things he did, man,
I
and
mean,
it
he
was
was the
like
talking point. He was the main dude to everybody talked
man,
about.
and he was willing to put that on his back, right? Like that 2008 year was
Mm,
the year that Robert Downey Jr. like regained his power of an actor. He
yeah,
had a lot of like, and it's actually funny because when you think about Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr., they literally are kind of
the same person.
like not that they, yeah, because you hear about like Robert, you know about Iron Man and alcoholism and all that other stuff, the rise
Yep.
and fall of Iron Man, the
Mm-hmm.
prodigal son, because Robert Downey Jr.'s father was an actor.
Mm.
It's like it's kind of like this movie mirrored him. He is Iron Man, and it's not to sit there and like I get you want to walk away from an image and thing, but it's like you really look at it and the sides of who you were and every acting film before that. You like I remember him. The first movie I remember him in for me was Weird Science.
Wow. Yeah.
Smart Alec.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that weird. So, yeah. 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 Yeah.
Woo! Right,
Yeah.
and they were trying to create themselves a hot chick. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. That's old school shit. Yeah. That's crazy.
Old school. One of my favorites, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. It's life imitates art, art imitating life. That sounds like, man, that is, I mean, movies in general, that's already a strange thing. I'm pretty sure we've covered this topic to some degree, but essentially you pretend to be somebody else. And then, the method acting motherfuckers is like, oh, I'm this person for 3 years. Like, huh, strange. And then Dave Chappelle said it like, or some shit. He was like, motherfucker, I don't even know my own feelings. How the fuck are you somebody else and you tap into their feelings? Like, what is
Yeah,
that about? Like, how do
yeah.
you do that? This is a made up person and you could relate to who they are. I can't even relate to myself. Like, what? That's insane. And this the idea of acting. I'm not saying it's a strange thing. Like, especially them
Let
like high level quote unquote acting, which
yeah
is there's
the
yeah.
method actors supposedly they go so deep into a character that they have to take time off to regain themselves. Like supposedly there's one that said Michael B. Jordan when he was playing Killmonger was
Mm,
so emotionally draining that he had to like he fell into slight depression supposedly because he was trying like the rage or whatever and trying to play that for so long, you know. And but the one obviously that stands out is Heath Ledger, like like literally being around it so much that he kind of drove himself crazy. At least that's what it seems to be. That's what it seems the story to be, right? That he went so deep into it.
I mean, these themes that we talk about, bad, good, all that shit. But Batman Joker for particular, thing is just the dynamic of who the people are. Because we've seen this version of Batman and Joker counting all the way back to the black and white days, you know what I'm saying? When it was, that show to the comic books, just the theme
Yeah,
and how to see its association with the people that have played them and who those people have become. It's one of those benchmark roles, like, like how whatever high theater would be back in the days, like, oh, Romeo and Juliet, who's playing Romeo, like it's kind of like that. It's like, oh, who's playing Batman,
yeah.
oh, who's playing Joker. And it's always, it's almost considered like not high acting, but just for whatever reason it's just always interesting because the stories that are tied in, and the Heath Ledger one comes to mind obviously, but there's always been, different Jokers, obviously Jared Leto being the other opposite. I don't know how many people watch that one, but he's a you know serious actor. Jack Nicholson, that's a classic one during the what's that called, was
Who's
that
one of the
Michael
most
Keaton years? Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. Who's
Yeah.
one of the most notorious Jokers?
Who?
Mark Hamill.
What year was that? Mark Hamill.
He's the voice acting of Joker in most video games and TV shows. Mark Hamill is Luke Skywalker.
Oh man, damn! How deep is that? he is also Darth Vader.
Well, I mean, well, not no. He's not Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker,
But I
but
mean, just in the theory that, oh yeah, the dude that plays, because you don't associate him with anybody else. Like it's not like, hey, this guy is only this guy. Wait, what? He's Joker's voice?
he's a joke. Yeah, he's been Joker's voice since I think maybe the cartoon, the Batman from cartoon, but he's been Joker's voice for a very long time.
See,
So
playing two sides of the tape. It's funny, even though he's just an actor, but it's like, yeah, it's interesting. You just happen to play one of the greatest
hell of a
villains.
voice actor.
Come
Yeah,
on,
like
man.
you would have never thought, like, when I go back and I watch Star Wars, right, and you love the Star Wars, I don't know if he was a great actor at that time, you know what I'm saying? But he'd grown into a great voice actor, and he does so many different things. It's like I remember I was when I well, and that's obviously hindsight to say. I watch it, I'm like, he was okay, and I used to feel like certain acting back then wasn't as good, right? There
Mm.
are certain movies that stand out. Like I think when we hit the '80s is when there's movies that are old but almost some cheesy, but some still hold up. Like I think Back to the Future holds up as an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
I think that Coming to America holds up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Eddie Murphy, well, not a lot. Like I think Coming to America, I think Trading Places hold up. Back to the Future holds up. What's another one? Karate Kid 1, even as bad as it was, holds
Oh,
up as a movie.
amazing.
You know what I'm saying?
Amazing.
You know, way better than 2. Like 2 was more exciting when I was a kid, but then when I got older, like for some reason 1 stands out more.
Oh, it's always got to be the one.
Uh, I felt like Ninja Turtles 1 was one of the best ones
Ooh,
because the grit and everything to it, and how it was kind of grounded. You know,
so good. So good.
like better. Like I get why people love Secret of the Ooze, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people love the Flash and the whatever. It was more colorful, it was more flashy, right?
Yeah.
But I always felt like Ninja Turtles 1 was grittier, more grounded,
It was more like the
and
comic book for sure. The comic book's fucking
the
violent as
original
fuck.
comic book, which was
Yeah.
violent. Yeah, most people don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, the second one was more like the cartoon.
Yeah.
You
Which
know,
is cool too,
one
because
of
it's dope. It's still dope either
well, the
way.
cartoon is what I loved. But then when I
Mhm.
went and saw it, I was like, and Raphael said, "Damn!" I was like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
man, said a bad word." But
I
I was
know.
like,
Oh,
or
Raph is
another
the
movie,
bad boy.
or even what I have in my background right now. Home
Oh
Alone
yeah.
1 stands the test of time, man.
Hey, that's. I mean,
Maybe
think
not
about it.
2,
Yeah.
maybe not
No.
2.
No.
2 is
No. No.
great, but
Yeah.
actually, when you go and listen
Two
to
is
the different
good though. Two is
2 is
good.
good. 2 is good. Definitely different because it started to make more of those like little cheesy sounds on everything, you know? Because I
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
watched them back to back and I started to notice like, the first one and had that song, but then
Mhm.
like not everything had the like when you watch 2 and you actually listen to the sound effects they had all those cheesy sounds added to it to add
Yeah.
effect and laughs,
Yeah.
you know?
A little more doctored up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Although there are certain things that are great in that, like outstanding.
I
The
mean,
Sticky
yeah.
Bandits.
Yeah. There. I mean, it's a good. It's from my thinking was this because I was thinking about the music side of it, but for this movie to be as a hey, this is something you got to watch during the holidays. Once you made it to that status, that's like Hall of Fame shit. You know what I mean? Especially in the movies, because the only other one that people kind of watch is Christmas Story, Home Alone, Christmas
And Die
Vacation,
Hard.
National Lampoon.
And Die Hard.
Die Hard's considered I put Coming to America in there personally, but that's just me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, was it during Christmas?
No.
Or was it?
Well, it was.
Oh, it's just a movie like a family
Oh no,
type
it
movie that you
was.
watch.
No, it was because
It was during winter.
at the end, when Daryl came in and fucking the sister was like, "Oh, I could you go change in the thing." It was at that time because they were getting gifts, I think, and there was presents, I think, at that time. And McDowell's, they had a Christmas party, right? That's where Daryl
Yeah, they
proposed to
did.
Lisa.
Yo,
Boom,
let's do a promotion
boom,
for Coming to America Christmas movie.
boom. I mean, but that's what I'm saying though. So to get on that pantheon though, for Home Alone to do it, because on the music side, I was thinking Mariah is one of the greatest because one of her songs is you can play it at Christmas every year now.
Once Thanksgiving passed, it's straight Mariah season.
That's what I'm saying. Crazy as she is goat status once you hit some holiday shit, because then that
Yeah,
means you
you
are forever cemented. Doesn't matter what happens to all
cemented,
your
right?
other shit, all your other
It's
great music. It's that you're in. Yeah.
that or it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Doo-doo. Yeah.
There
Well,
you
I mean,
go.
name me other whoever made that song, whoever's famous for that. What's his other songs?
I don't know, but I would say this: Mariah Carey is gonna be that
Yep.
for the rest of like from here on out.
Eternity,
She's gonna
eternity,
be that, yeah.
eternity. This is gonna be
And
motherfuckers 60
93
years from
from
now.
93 to infinity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for real. Truth, truth. If you get on the holiday wagon with anything, Home Alone being one of them, Macaulay Culkin was like, "Man, I ain't never got to work a day in my life after this shit.
Oh, the
I'm
residuals? Come
chilling,
on.
dude. Come on, every year that check is PHAT farms. Boom, for
Yeah, Pet
real.
Farms, right?
Come
Yeah,
on,
you know.
man. You know what I'm
Google
saying?
me. He looks at
Man.
people say, Google me. That's what he
And
says.
dude, there's Joe Pesci. Come on, man.
Joe Pesci looks terrible now, but still classic, man.
Hey, but I mean,
You
at
know,
that time though, you're talking about if
you're
you go
talking
back
about
in
that.
his acting
That was
career,
out of
this
his.
is
That was out of his norm, right?
come
Two
on,
movies that were
man.
out of his norm, right?
So
I mean, he
good.
was still kind of a gangster type of person
Yeah.
in Home
Yeah.
Alone, but it was more a comedic role, right? I mean, even
Uh,
though I think a lot of his movies he was angry, but it was comedic because it was just how angry he was. It was like, oh,
yeah.
okay, 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 right? It was like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Are
Certain
you looking at
prototype.
you? What, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, so you had that. You had what is it? The one where he's the landlord. What was it? Was it superintendent? Intendant? Oh,
Who's the co-star on it?
it was him and a younger black kid for a while, but he was one where he had to live into the he was like a slumlord or whatever, where he had to live in the bad apartment that was like roach infested, rat infested, and he had to fix it up if he didn't. And people, so their sentence to him was they had to live in his area for about a month or so, you know, to see how people felt, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the major things like it worked before you broke it. That was one of the. But you have that, and you have My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny
Oh
kind of stands out
yes,
more than
that's
that.
right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Marissa
Okay.
Tomei almost got I think she got Best Supporting Actor for that or something,
Hey,
maybe,
shouts
or
out
got
Marissa
nominated.
Tomei. Mm,
Yo, that's
mm,
still Marissa
mm.
Tomei. You know, she Bay all day.
Oh, hey, she slept
Marissa
on.
Bay.
Hey, she's one of them OG old school like 80s, 90s like things. She's along with
But she holds up though. I mean, like it's like
oh yeah,
that's
even
still
today, yeah.
it's like Marissa Tomei is just beautiful.
Slept on.
Why probably why I love Italian girls slightly. You know, I love girls,
Mm,
girls, girls, girls.
mm,
I do adore.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, no, that 90s shit's for real. A lot of magic happening for sure. A lot of
Yeah,
magic
like
happening.
yeah, from about the mid '80s to '90s, it's just like a lot of magic.
But see,
Like
does
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you got what was it? Sorry, I just Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh shit, yeah. See, those are one of them weird like cult classics too.
Cult classics. You know, he was using the internet before the internet was even out.
Or
How did
was
he
it
hack
out
the kids'
already?
school? It was. I mean, it most likely was because the military was using it as something else. But still, it was
Oh,
on.
but
It was
facts,
on
facts.
video. It was on video, right? And it was like, how was he able to control the computer,
Oh man.
log it in? You know, he said, my parents got. I wanted this for Christmas. My parents got me a computer. The internet at that time was unheard of. We didn't even know what it was, but he was getting into that. You know,
What year was that? That was like
I want to
84,
say it was 80. Ooh, I could be wrong because it was
85.
either because there's a lot of movies in 85 that came out where you're like, what? Like, I didn't know this was 85. I'm gonna look it up right now.
I'm telling you, because that computer shit was made around that time, or at least
86.
released. There we go.
86. I keep thinking I was like 1988 or something like that, you know?
Nah, man, that's what I'm saying. Like computers were only the information or the idea of them was released to the public around that time. I want to say like 82, maybe. Like where it was actually
This
like,
is
oh yeah, this is a thing.
Ed. This is Ed Rooney. And that girl that he dated was fine as heck at that time.
Wait, which one?
Then he had Ben Stein, the one
Oh yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
one that yeah,